Om Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya Asmadacharya-Paryantam Vande Guru-Paramparam Akhandam Sachidanandam Avam Manasagocharam Atmanam Akhiladharam Ashraye Bhishta-Siddhaye Arthatopi Advayanandan Atita-Dvaita Bhanatah Guru Naradya Vedanta Saram Vaksheyata-Matihi. I think we saw verse 171 last time. Yes. Any questions, clarifications, or shall we go ahead? What is it?
172 you have done.
Yeah. We read 172 also. Yes.
Swamiji Pranam, you said you'll elaborate on 169.
I can't hear that. Somebody is saying something?
Swamiji, Nirmala here, I had asked about 169.
Yeah. What is it? Can you just repeat that?
If I'm correct in understanding, if the Mahavakyam that is, in the Mahavakyam, the consciousness that is manifest in the mind and body, and limited body and mind, and the consciousness that is limited is common.
What is the second part? The consciousness that is manifest in the mind and body.
And the consciousness that is manifest, that is limitless, is common to both tattvas. Common.
Sorry, you are not clear, or maybe I can't hear properly. You'll have to speak up a little bit. 1 second, I'm muting everyone. There is too much of a racket. I'm just muting everyone and then you can speak. You will have to unmute and speak. Yeah, please unmute and speak.
In the Mahavakyam, the consciousness that is manifest in the limited body mind and the consciousness that is limitless is common to both Tat and Tvam. That was my question, Swamiji.
Consciousness, that is the second part.
Manifest, yeah. The second part, meaning is it common? I wanted to know in Tat and
Yeah,
Tvam.
in fact is one and the same, not common. See, the consciousness that is manifest in the individual and the consciousness that is manifest in the total is one and the same. We are not talking about a common consciousness. We are talking about one and the same entity. A common, the word is used a little bit colloquially, yeah. But really speaking, we are talking about both being, there is being only one consciousness. So there is some sort of an equation between the individual and the total. Okay. But the equation means an identity, a oneness. Not two things being equal. You know, two things can be considered equal. Like weight wise, 1 kilo of apple is equal to 1 kilo of oranges, weight wise. There is an equality there as far as weight is concerned. This is not like that. This is one and the same thing. Yeah. Only then the non-duality will come out. Otherwise it will be like apples and oranges. Yeah. It is not even part of a subset of fruits. You can't even look like that. You know. If you are introducing the understanding of set and saying both are 1 kilo of fruits, therefore equal. Even then there are differences. It's only weight-wise equality. Yeah. That's why we are going beyond equality into oneness. Equality means there is a difference. Only in differences can you talk about equality. Yeah. We are going beyond that in our understanding of oneness. Yeah. There is only one consciousness, that's it. Now then you can say what is the need for an equation? The need for an equation comes up because we start with duality, with adhyasa. The adhyasya duality is there. Therefore, when we are studying, our minds are caught up in the duality. Therefore, to negate the duality, it has to be presented like this. That's why deliberately, see, Vedanta could have said, na, you are limitless consciousness. In fact, many modern teachers of Vedanta, modern meaning most of them are Western, okay? They have not really gone through a traditional system of learning. They learned academically and they have got some exposure to tradition. They met some traditional teachers here and there, seen them on YouTube, because everything is now available on YouTube. Okay. But many of them will not have the patience to go through a class like this on YouTube. Why you are discussing some intricacies here, there, come on, give me the big picture. So because of that, they will present it as your limitless consciousness. Job done, no? Job is not done. Because the world stands against your understanding. Therefore, the world necessarily has to be included. That is where Ishvara comes into the picture. In fact, there is one very well known and good teacher of Vedanta, fairly good, modern teacher, but I am hoping to meet him this July, August in UK. Okay, and hopefully have the time to have a discussion with him on this topic. Rupert Sapira. Somewhere in one of his videos, he has said that Tattvamasi is a subtle level of ignorance. Tattvamasi is a subtle level of removing ignorance. Yes, the setup of Tattvamasi has come because there is ignorance. If there is no ignorance, what is the necessity of teaching? What is the necessity of a pramana? You don't need. But it is meant to remove that. But he mentions it that way. Therefore, nor is Ishvara invented only or conceptualized only to bring a totality. It is not conceptualization or an invention or a model presented. Ishvara is as much as a fact as my body, if not more. Because my body will last only 80, 90 years. Ishvara lasts for a whole kalpa. In the manifested form. Therefore, even the manifested Ishvara is a fact. Otherwise, it look as though Vedantins are inventing an Ishvara only to bring in totality. You are giving it a name. Totality is given a name, Ishvara, which is not true. Which is not true at all. Yeah. So when you read books in English on all this, these are the things you have to be careful of. Though will I dismiss all modern teachers of Vedanta as useless? No. Their Tvampada Lakshanam is very good. They have a very good way of explaining Tvampada, you. And some amount of psychological approach to things, etc. is good. That part of it is good in them. That part can be taken. Okay, but the other part, somewhere because in their backgrounds, the idea of God is too Christian, too Occidental. No? Therefore, they are rejecting that. See, why did they even start looking for other religions and wisdom from other scriptures? Because they felt what they were in was not answering their issues. Therefore, they rejected certain ideas. God is one of them. Because the way God is presented in the Abrahamic religions is problematic. Very problematic. In fact, in Indian psychology, we look at God, our understanding of God, in a way as freeing ourselves with certain psychological issues. Whereas in Western psychology, God is the cause. The idea of God is the cause for a lot of psychological issues. That's why that pure Western model of psychology will not work in Oriental cultures. It needs to be modified, given an Indian influence into the whole thing. So that way one has to look at it. Okay. J. Krishnamurti also, he also fell for the same thing. Yeah. So modern teachers like Rupert Sapira, Muji, J. Krishnamurti, all of them come in that same category. In fact, one of my batchmates, not batchmates, a junior of mine, but Guru Bhais. Okay. Oh, sorry, should I say Guru Ben? Because she's a woman. Was very much taken by Rupert Sapira because he presented certain psychological aspects very well. Okay. But then she heard this comment that Tattvamasi is a subtle level of ignorance. And therefore she put a blog post up, she writes a blog. Okay. Yeah. Saying that modern teachers better get a dose of traditional teaching. Better get exposed to traditional teachers and traditional teaching. Yeah. This is right. Okay.
What is the name of the book that he has written?
Beg your pardon?
What is the name of the book that he has written? Sapira.
Name of the
Book that you mentioned, no, just now.
I didn't mention any book. I only mentioned
The
a
author.
teacher called Rupert Sapira. Yeah.
Okay.
He is coming there for the yoga festival this time. He is there in UK
Okay.
for the yoga festival. Yeah, that's why I hope to meet him. He is Sarva Priyananda and all. The only thing is, when you come to the festival, you don't have a real time to sit down and talk among the scholars. Necessary to have a dialogue. Okay.
Swamiji, I had one
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, shoot.
This was about, last class we talked about Vritti Vyapti and
Yeah,
Phala
yeah.
Vyapti. Just one clarification now, when we look at Sushupti Avastha, I recall the sleep in my Jagrat Avastha. So is it that the Vritti Vyapti is happening in Sushupti and the Phala Vyapti is happening in Jagrat Avastha?
Slightly different. In Sushupti, the consciousness is objectifying the ignorance. The consciousness is objectifying the ignorance. Because anything in front will be objectified. And the vritti is ati sukshmam. You can't call it vritti vyapti, phala vyapti, etc. Because of its very subtle nature, it's only enough to leave an impression, a memory. The objectification part is there, that's all. That's why we say ati sukshma vritti, because there is memory in the waking. Because there is memory in the waking, we have to say there is some sort of mind present. You can even say latent mind, that's good enough also. Just present enough to leave a mark on it, a memory mark. Yeah. Because if for the process of vritti vyapti, phala vyapti to happen, the mind has to be very active, which it is not in deep sleep. Therefore, it is only enough to leave an impression, nothing more. Nothing more than that, yeah.
I see. So everything is happening in Jagrat only,
Yeah.
except the
Yeah.
impression in the whole. Okay.
Exactly, yeah.
Thank you.
So that's where the whole thing goes, yeah. Any other questions, clarifications? Shoot. We are not in a hurry. We have to get clarity of understanding. This has to be grounded very well. Because some of these ideas will get shaken in Vedanta Paribhasha and things like that.
Swamiji, not a question related to Vedanta Sara, but Ishvara
Yeah.
and Avatara. Can I ask now? Like,
Shoot.
Is it okay? So, when we talk about Ishvara taking Avatara as Rama, then Krishna.
Yeah.
So then, did these avatars knew that they were just a manifestation and they were really speaking Ishvara born only for the certain purpose to be...
They were born in the same transactional manner. So an avatara is born exactly like any other human being is born. That doesn't change. That's why they have a childhood to grow up, etc., etc., etc. But two factors, they don't have ignorance of themselves, plus they have some special powers meant for their avatara. See, all the human avatars are born in human forms. Okay? Vamana, Parshurama, Rama, Krishna, all of them human avatars. Before that was Matsya, Kurma, etc. That is different. Okay? Matsya, Kurma, Narasimha, etc. were different manifestations. They manifested differently. No. Even after Vamana, Trivikrama was a Vamana assuming that form. Narasimha came out of a pillar when the pillar broke. When the pillar was broken, he manifested out of the pillar. Therefore, those avatars are different. All the human avatars, from Vamana, Parashurama, Rama, Krishna, they all come, they all have a childhood. But in childhood also they exhibit extraordinary powers or abilities. Okay. Yeah. Vamana's childhood, etc. are not mentioned. So we don't know whether he was really born or what, we don't know. But by the time it came to Parashurama onwards, very clear-cut things are available. Who the parents were, what it was, all that is available. The only difference is it's a conscious manifestation, not karma based. They are not under the hold of karma like you and I are. When we are born, we are under the hold of karma. There is no choice. I can't say I don't want this parents, I don't want this country. You don't want this country, wait until you become an adult, then migrate. Okay, that much choice you have. That's a freedom given, God given freedom given. But avatars are not born with the helplessness of karma. No. Yeah.
Swamiji,
Yes, Sintabe.
I wanted to know this regarding, since this Avatara has mentioned, the beginning, the Matsya, Kurma, and is there some evolution depicted, then how?
Yeah. I know that there are modern, again, people like Sadhguru, etc., who say that it's all about theory of evolution being presented. If it's a theory of evolution being presented, why the hell did Krishna mention it in Gita?
Now, is
With
there
a
any significance?
with a clear-cut purpose, etc. यदा धर्मस्य ग्लानिर्भवति भारत तथात्मानं सृजाम्यहम् उत्क्रामन्यस्य धर्मस्य विनाशश्च अधर्मस्य. All that very clear purpose mentioned. What is the point in all that? That is the pramana, not what some modern teacher cooks up. Yeah.
Swamiji,
Yeah.
can I ask a question?
Sure. One second. Nita Bain, are you satisfied with this?
Yeah, I thought, is there any significance of that first matsya, then a little, and then half human, half animal, and then Nusiha? And I was just wondering, I'm not quoting any modern teacher, only my own curiosity.
Okay, it is your own Kapola Kalpitam. All right.
Okay, Swamiji, thank you.
Yeah, it's okay. You imagine something like that, the possibility, because you are exposed to science. You are a doctor, and you think that this is a possibility. Fine, you can think like that. But what is the pramana for it? Pramana for the whole idea of an avatara, then you wouldn't call it avatara. You will call it theory of evolution and leave it like that. But the moment you are saying avatara, then the whole picture changes. Avatara, then you go to look into the pramana for the avataras. Smriti of the Gita is one. Bhagavatam, etc. is the others. They give more details about what happened, etc. How it happens, etc. So the pramana is there. Otherwise, science will become the pramana. No? For theory of evolution, science is a pramana. Let us leave it to them. We don't have to import a scientific idea into the Shastra unless it's already there in the Shastra.
Rightly, it is nowhere mentioned in the Shastra why these avatars are like this. Nowhere in the Shastra.
Of course it is mentioned. Read the Bhagavatam, read the Gita. Gita gives you what an avatara is, and the purpose of an avatara is very clearly stated in the Gita.
No, I mean why first Matsya, then Kurma.
For that you have to go to the Bhagavatam.
Acha.
Bhagavatam will give you all that. Why the Matsya avatara, why the Kurma avatara, all that the Bhagavatam will give.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, Kamini, what is your question?
Yeah, we are talking about this Sukshma Vritti in deep sleep.
Okay, you have gone back to deep sleep. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying you have gone to sleep. I'm saying you have gone back to the topic. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and the samskaras that we carry, whether you call from the last birth, how would you compare those? Because both are actually memory based, right?
Subconscious, unconscious, levels of it. Levels change.
Okay.
Yeah, but both samskaras manifest and you have to deal with it. Both the samskaras manifest now and you have to deal with it. Yeah.
Swamiji, may I?
Yeah,
I,
shoot.
In relation to this, the vasanas and the samskara manifested are, they take the form of a dream. But in
Yeah.
the deep sleep, do they play any deep sleep?
The question about deep sleep came because how do you remember you slept? We are not talking about manifestation of samskaras in deep sleep. Yeah. When somebody else asks a question, pay attention. Because otherwise you will get a doubt with respect to the answer.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Clear, everyone? Okay. Okay. Therefore, going into the little bit more detail into that 172 which we read last time, he says that Chit Pratibimba Sahita Sati, The consciousness that is manifest in the mind is the knower, isn't it? You call him Sakshi, you'll call him, all that you'll call. But that is basically what becomes the knower. Okay? Pratyak abhimanam ajnatam param brahma vishikritya. It looks as though that is objectifying the Parabrahman. Why? Because Parabrahman is being presented as something to be known. Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahman, etc. Therefore, there is an attempt at that Vishikritma. Okay. Why? Because the Vritti Vyapti is being formed. But then when the Vritti Vyapti is formed, Tad Gata Ajnanameva Bhadate. Only the Ajnanam is destroyed. So that much of Vritti has to be there. That much of Vritti has to be there. Then he says, I gave that example. When the thread is burnt, the cloth is burnt. Patadahe, tantudahe, patadaha. Okay. Then ajnane bhadite sati. Similarly, when the ajnanam is negated, tat karyasya akhilasya bhaditatva. All the effect, vrittis etc. are effect of the ajnanam. No? Therefore, all bhaditatva. Akhandakara karita chitta vritti bhadita bhavati. Even the akhandakara vritti goes. This is said in a simple manner in Atma Bodha, which says Kritva Jnanam Swayam Nashit Jala Kataka Renuvat. There he gives a different example. He says like alum powder. You know, olden days. Nowadays, nobody, I don't think people even have seen alum in the last 20 years. Okay. Yeah. You know, when we first set up the Rishikesh ashram, the municipal water was a problem. Ganga water was okay. You could drink the Ganga water directly, no problem. But the water that comes in the tap was the municipal supply. So people were falling ill. So I had to set up a small tiny water purification thing only for us. So we had a tank, drinking water tank. You know, when you go to Rishikesh Ashram, you know a place where there are those filters, etc., where you fill your bottles for drinking water. That place. On top, there is a tank. So I'm talking about 83. So every morning, when I was there, I would do it. Otherwise, somebody else has to do it. You go and put alum all over on the surface of the water. Alum powder. Now that becomes soapy like. It settles down, taking all the impurities with it. Then what? Then along with the impurities, the alum is also filtered out. Swayam Nashye, that is important. You can't be having alum on it. Okay. You'll have other indigestion problems. You won't get infection, but you'll have indigestion issues. That's like saying if your child has drunk some ink by mistake, give him some blotting paper. That won't work. So similarly, Kritva Jnanam Swayam Nashit, having created that knowledge. Created that knowledge how? By negating of ignorance. Why? I am knowledge is self-evident. Only what I am I did not know. There was ignorance around what I am. So when that ignorance gone, what I am is very clear. Therefore, Kritva Jnanam Swayam Nashye. Okay, Akhandakara Kriti. Therefore, it is not that that thought is going to remain in your mind all the time. Let me give you an example. What I am holding in my hand, my old example, pen. Does this thought of pen constantly remain in your mind? Pen removed. Thought of pen gone? Knowledge of pen gone? No. Exactly. Leaving behind the knowledge, the thought goes. Leaving behind the knowledge, the thought goes. That's what happens here. Akhandakara vritti also goes. Because the resolving vritti anyway. It cannot remain separate from Brahman. That is going to say in the next verse. It goes. What's left behind? One flame of consciousness, that's it. All pervading consciousness, that's all that is left. That is, you can call that samadhi if you want, okay? Split second samadhi, but not andham, not blind, very much awake in the knowledge. It's not andha samadhi, it's knowledge, all knowing. Jnana samadhi, this is.
So Swamiji, I have a question.
Yeah, Sunita, shoot.
Which means when the student says Aham Brahmasmi,
Yes, when he recognizes.
then there the knowledge is objectified, no?
The knowledge can be objectified, yes. But the thought is not objectified.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After that you can say, I have Vedanta Jnanam. That's a different thing. Yeah.
I'm so sorry, Swamiji. So the thought is not objectified, the
No.
knowledge is objectified.
Yeah, because right now if you say, I know Vedanta, it's objectified. No? It is different from saying, I know myself, then there is no objectification. Yeah. Are you seeing the difference? Yeah. Vedanta is a pramana. Knowledge is what it gives. Yeah.
So Swamiji, this happens in Nididhyasanam.
It happens in waking first. It happens in Shravanam. When you are listening, it should happen. It can happen in Nididhyasana also, like a joke clicking. Remember that example of mine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sadam
So the joke clicks afterwards. That way it can happen in Nididhyasana. You listen to it, but we are not here. Either the teacher is moving fast like how I do, or you are distracted by something or the other. घर में है ना, child comes in, maid comes in, this comes in, that comes in, everyone comes in. So a lot of distraction. So it didn't click that time. But when you're sitting quietly in Nididhyasana, it clicked. Yeah, it clicked. Now that can happen. Yeah. That's why there is no Bodhi tree realization. Okay. There under the Bodhi tree, things clicked for him, which is good. It clicked, na? Acha hi hai. Better than not clicking. A delayed reaction is better than no reaction. Yeah. So it clicked at that time, that's okay. Doesn't make it anything less. Yeah. Are you getting the idea? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Then he is giving an example of how these two vrittis, how that vritti vyapti, what is the behavior of that vritti vyapti, or what is the relationship of that with the consciousness. Okay. Tatra pratibimbitaha chaitanyam api. Pratibimbita chaitanya, the manifested consciousness. Yatha deepa prabha aditya prabha avabhasana samartham sati. Okay, like a lamp that you have a lamp in your hand, or a flashlight in your hand, a torchlight in your hand. It is working, you switched it on. Can it illumine the sun? But what happens? Tatha abhibhutaha bhavati. The light of the sun overwhelms your lamp or your flashlight, isn't it? It overwhelms it. It is there, it is shining, but it's overwhelmed. Are you getting the idea? It is there, it is shining, but it's overwhelmed by the light of the sun. Example. Now, tatha saprakashamanam pratyek abhimanam parabrahma avabhasana ahartya. Similarly, the consciousness manifests in your mind. Consciousness manifests in your mind. Not you, the consciousness alone we are talking about. Consciousness manifests in your mind. Can it illumine the consciousness?
No.
But is it a sentient shining entity or not? A conscious entity or not? It is. Therefore, what happens to it? Okay. It cannot illumine the conscious, but what happens? Tena abhibhutam sat. It gets overwhelmed by the light of the consciousness. It is overwhelmed by the consciousness. So, upadi bhuta akandakara vrittiti bhaditva apurna bhave darpana bhave mukha pratibimbasya mukha matratva pratyek abhimanam param brahma matram bhavati. So the consciousness that you are overwhelms the consciousness manifested in your mind. Therefore the sense of separation is not there.
But Swamiji,
Yeah?
I know you're saying this to take away the sense of separation.
Exactly. So,
But at the same time,
but 1 second. Don't make it a block understanding. Just like how the flashlight is there as a shining entity, you are there as a conscious entity. Can you say you disappear? This is modern Vedanta, and that is the problem. You don't disappear. But the fact that you are a conscious entity is overwhelmed, is included, taken over, if you may use those words, by the limitless consciousness that is there. Because what is there is limitless consciousness. Now, I, the conscious entity, am recognizing I am that limitless consciousness. Wow. My sentiency is there. Because the individual is not disappearing. But the individual is one with the totality.
is this where the misunderstanding of
Yeah.
the ego has come?
Yeah, exactly,
Like
exactly.
ahankara must disappear and
Yeah.
but at the same time, Swamiji, sometimes in the Niti Dhyasnam, when I'm just in the silence, I get a little overwhelmed. Is it also because my ahankara sentiency is getting overwhelmed by
Yes,
the
yes. That's exactly what's happening. Yes. Yeah. So that's good. That's a good sign. Yeah. Okay. Therefore, what? Then he gives an example. When that is overwhelmed like that, darpana bhave mukha pratibimba bhavas. If there is no mirror, there is no reflection of the mirror. No, my face is not reflected. Only my face is there. No? When the mirror is gone, only my face remains, my reflection is gone. Similarly, when the thought, mind is resolved, what remains? Remember, akandakara karita vritti is also a resolving vritti. Mind taking the form of the consciousness, what happens? Mind is resolved. Reflection also is resolved. Many of us resist this. That's the ahankara resisting it. Don't resist, let it happen.
why does the ahankara resist?
Because
Swamiji?
ahankara's first job is to survive. Everything else later. So it imagines, all the books that you have read, death of the ahankara, etc., that is responsible for it, for that resistance. Plus, as a human being, your resistance. Because the ahankara does not want to give up its role, its function. It looks as though it has got an independent identity itself.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. I'll come back to that later, but let me complete this. Then what? Pratyek Atman Param Brahmam eva bhavati. What is remaining is only one Param Brahman. Separate individualness is not there. Look at it. You started by saying, okay, I have to know Brahman. Then the teaching came in. Akhandakara Vritti took place. Vritti Vyapti happened. Phala Vyapti is not possible. That thought is there. Recognition. That taking the form. That is overwhelmed by the consciousness. Then what is remained? Only consciousness. How long? A split second? 10 days? Whatever. Split second is good enough. If you can catch it, the split second is good enough. That's all that is necessary. Then the question of why that resistance. See, we all know too much of self-criticism is bad. I am giving an example, digressing a little bit for the example so that it will be clearer. We all know too much of self-criticism is bad. Correct? But many of us who have been brought up in a highly critical environment, as children, we develop what is known as an inner critic. It's a fragmentation of my mind. We develop this inner critic. Why? Because I don't like external criticism. Therefore, I'll criticize myself before that criticism can come in to correct myself. It was a method of survival. Okay? Done by the mind before the child could really be in charge of its own life. Before the awareful ego had fully manifested itself. Now look at it. Who is in charge of your functioning life? The awareful ego. Your functioning life is governed by the ego. No? Therefore, the awareful ego is supposed to be in charge of your life. But how often are you hijacked by the inner critic? How often are we hijacked? Unless we have integrated that inner critic into the awareful ego, so that my critical thinking can come up when necessary, not used when not necessary, which is most of the times. Until that integration has come up, this will happen. The same way, the ahankara, the ego, will resist this knowledge. Why? Hey, I am in charge of this guy's life. This guy is an idiot without me. He can't do anything without me. Correct or not? Like the inner critic saying, I think I have exposed quite a few of you all to a camp where we had a dialogue with some of your multiple selves. Inner critic, etc.
Yes, yes.
Vulnerable child, inner critic.
Yes, yes, yes,
Yeah.
Swamiji.
I have done it, Swamini has done it, both of us have done it, different times. So when this thing comes up, the inner critic says, I am here to protect that guy, he can't do anything. This character can't do anything. He will keep getting into problems, I am here to protect him. Whereas really speaking, as an adult, your awareful ego should be in charge, not the critic, not the pleaser, not the pusher. All these are there in our personalities as subsects of the ego, but they seem to have an independent life. Sometimes very strong, sometimes very weak. Most of us here in this class, it will be very weak, but it will be there. Shall I tell you a few things that is there in this class? I am not mentioning names, but watch out for inner critic, watch out for pleaser, watch out for pusher. You all decide what you have. Okay. Yeah. These three are very common. There are other variations also. A lot of things are there. We have identified a dozen of them. Okay. Anyway, that apart. So they seem to have a life of their own. Similarly, your ahankara seems to have a life of its own. The ahankara seems to have a life of its own. Why? I am in charge of life. Yeah. I manage the life. What the heck? That is why it will come up as resistance to teaching, getting upset with the teaching, getting angry with the teaching. All that will come up. Well, all these are various forms of resistance. That's why that Shraddha as a value is put into Adhikaritva. That Shraddha is put in as a value in the qualification of a student, because that will help overcome this. Otherwise, Shraddha is not necessary. But because this resistance is there, that Shraddha is put. That's why Shraddha is not blind belief, etc. Just giving benefit of doubt to the teacher. If there is a conflict. Because that type of resistance will be there. It's natural for the ahankara to resist. I am sure there are some classes where people have gone away saying, hey, yaar, he is talking nonsense there. That is not correct. I'm not saying everyone, but I'm saying most people. At some time or the other it would have happened. No. He doesn't know those things. Those things I know. Correct. I never claim to be knowing every field of discipline that is there in the world. I never claim that. I claim a sense of mastery in my field. Unfortunately, my field involves looking objectively at a lot of things. And the advantage of studying Vedanta traditionally, including Tarka and Vedanta Paribhasha books like that, is that you develop a very logical mind that can support things logically and demolish things logically also. Therefore, you will see what is good in something, you will see what is problematic in something very, very easily. Because the system of Vedanta, when you study traditionally, is Khandana Mandana. That's why you notice when I talked about the modern teachers, I talked about what is problematic, I talked about what is good. Both I talked about. It is not like complete dismissal of something as useless. No. It's objectively looking at it. Yeah. So this part of it, that resistance is Ahankara's job. If there is no resistance at all, probably your Ahankara is not fully in charge of your life. Okay? Yeah. That's why we talk about healthy self-esteem, etc. Uddhared atman atmanam. You need a strong sense of the self. If your sense of the self is namby-pamby, useless, you can't study Vedanta. Why? I am trying to say you are everything and you are saying I am nothing. How will it work? If you are saying I am nothing and I am trying to make you understand you are everything, how will it work? Tell me. You have to be able to say I am something at least, no? Therefore, that healthy ahankara is necessary. To be a good student of Vedanta, we need a healthy ahankara. That's why healthy self-esteem is necessary. But to prevent it from going haywire, we say have an altar of surrender. No, I think the psychological aspect of it, when you look at it, it is beautiful. Western psychology, when they talk about self-esteem, they don't have altar of surrender. They don't have it. Even the greatest writer of them all, in the sense of self-esteem, Nathaniel Branden, he is the authority when it comes to self-esteem. He has not put in sense of surrender. He is hoping that your understanding of self-esteem will take care of it by calling the haywire thing as pseudo self-esteem, etc. It's not wrong, but it's not enough. It's not enough. Therefore, the sense of surrender is necessary to balance it out. It's only when you have a strong ego the surrender is meaningful. Otherwise, where is the meaningful? I saw this very, very nicely presented in a dance drama put up by amateur children. The Chinmaya Mission youth group, years ago in the 80s, they put up Kamba Ramayana. Okay? They had 8 stages, some of it natural, like Ashokavana where Sita was captured was put in captivity was a natural setting. There is a tree, which Hanuman sitting on top of the tree, when Ravana comes to speak with Sita. And in getting angry once he almost slipped, and if he had fallen on Ravana, Ravana would have been over right there. Because Hanuman was an empty guy, na? And from that height, if he had fallen on Ravana, we would have finished Ramayana right there. Anyway, that apart, jokes apart, so 8 stages. And there is one scene there where that young man, in his 20s, 22 or something he was that time, acting Ravana, who was defeated in battle, going back to Lanka. Because the first time Ravana doesn't kill him, Rama doesn't kill Ravana. Because he is defeated, his chariot is destroyed, everything is standing helpless on the ground. Now you can't shoot a helpless man. This is not modern warfare. This was the age of chivalry. Okay. So Rama tells him, go, come back tomorrow with fresh weapons and a fresh chariot. So he goes back. And in the way that man walked back, that youngster walked back, he brought this out very clearly. The strength and the weakness both together. Very beautifully brought out. And Kambar says there, that the gods are laughing, he cared not. That the Gandharvas, Kinnaras laugh, he cared not. That the other Rakshasas will laugh, he cared not. But that slim-waisted girl with spear-like glances will laugh, and that cut him to the core. And the way that man moved when this was there, said, yes, he's showing what it means for a strong man to be humbled. So as a student of Vedanta, that's what we need. Strong and strength, humble at the same time. So a healthy self-esteem and an altar of surrender will take care of it. So all that thing that I have set up, put up, etc., all this is thought of. When someone enters my class, I think what happens 20 years down the line with the same guy, if he laughs with me. So then, that resistance of the Ahankara is not there. Self-esteem is healthy enough, and the sense of surrender is there to Ishvara, to the Pramana, to the Guru. In that order, okay? Ishvara, the Pramana and the Guru. Then learning takes place, the resistance is gone. Then all that is there is one, what is left behind? One flame of consciousness, that's all that you are. Limitlessness. Yeah. और क्या बात है, कुछ नहीं और कछु नहीं है. Yeah. Now, because of that, he is bringing in. Okay. Yeah. He is now showing how this is related to 2 types of statements you will find in Vedanta. Okay. 2 distinct classes of statements you will find in Vedanta with respect to the Atma. That is talking about here. Evam cha sati manasa eva anudrashtavyam. Vrihadaranyukopanishad. Yan manasana manute, that which cannot be known by the mind, Kenopanishad. Iti anayoho श्रुतियोः अविरुद्धोः वृत्तिव्याप्तित्व अंगीकारणे च फलव्याप्तित्व प्रतिषेध प्रतिपादनात्. He says the seeming contradiction of these two statements. What looks contradictory? What is that? It is beyond the mind. Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasa saha. From where the words turn back along with the mind, unable to know the self. You remember which Upanishad we did this? Taittiriya. Good. People are remembering it. Okay. Yato vacho nivartante. It is there in Brihadaranyaka also. Okay. Yeah. And other statement, yan manusana manute, the mind cannot think of. All that refers to which statement? Phala vyapti is not possible. You cannot objectify it. Phala vyapti is not possible. Yan manasana manute, the mind cannot objectify it. Correct? Phala vyapti is not possible. It's beyond the mind. Correct? Phala vyapti is not possible. Manasa eva anudrashtavyam, by the mind alone it has to be known. Correct? Vritti vyapti has to be there.
Yes.
See this very clearly, because these two types of statement, what big mistake is made in today's world is the academicians take only manasa eva anudrashtavyam. Therefore they study scholarly and think they know the whole thing. All the concepts are very clear for me in Vedanta. When I hear a statement like that, I know he knows nothing. Because Vedanta is not conceptual.
It's beyond concepts.
Atma is not a concept. So, that is the problem. Whether the academics is in English or the academics is in Sanskrit. There is a whole branch of Sanskrit academicians also. Okay? Who study in the Sanskrit colleges. The teaching is the same. It's a bit better than English academics. Yeah, it's a bit better because at least they are familiar with the Sanskrit terminology. They know Sanskrit. English, you can have a doctorate in Vedanta without knowing Sanskrit. Okay? You can get a PhD in Vedanta without knowing Sanskrit. There is a writer about Sanskrit grammar in English. Robert White. I forget the name now. There is the tip of the tongue. Getting old. Okay, there is the tip of the tongue not coming out. He treats Panini etc. disrespectfully by calling them native grammarians. Okay, the word native was not used by the British in a very positive term. Okay. He writes a book on Sanskrit grammar, which is pretty good actually, but he can't write. He doesn't know how to write Sanskrit. Similarly, you can get a doctorate in Vedanta without knowing Sanskrit. You just pick up some terminology, like most of our students here, they don't know Sanskrit. That's why I always say pick up some Sanskrit knowledge. It will make your studies more valid. In a city like Bombay, I can't spend separate time having a Sanskrit class for all the students along with the Vedanta class. Supposing I had said, okay, half an hour before the class we'll have Sanskrit. I'll find half the class coming only when the Vedanta starts. Or if I say after the class, half an hour, after the Vedanta class, half an hour Sanskrit, I'll find people making excuses to go. In fact, they'll make excuses 5 minutes before the Sanskrit, before the Vedanta class ends. So it doesn't look as though they're making excuses. I know people all right. Therefore, I encourage, and I know some of you here who are studying Vedanta seriously, they have picked up Sanskrit knowledge. It helps. And there are Sanskrit academics also, like many of the Sanskrit colleges. Banaras Hindu University, etc., have a doctorate degree where you are forced to study Sanskrit. If you want to do Sanskrit in any of the tradition. If you want to do a doctorate in any of the traditional systems, forget doctorate. Even if you do to do a graduation in any of this thing traditional system, you have to study Sanskrit. In Cochin, Chinmaya Mission has started a deemed university, where the university things happen normally, but a few students there are studying Sanskrit and everything is happening in Sanskrit. But they are being taught by Panditas, not by traditional teachers, nor by Chinmaya Mission teachers. Because Chinmaya Mission teacher, the teaching will be reduced to Om, BMI, PFT, OET. But both the teaching is an academic learning. Therefore, they will focus on Manasa Eva Anudrashtavyam. When it comes to the yogis or the modern Vedantins, there is all focus on beyond the mind, beyond the mind, beyond the mind. It is natural. Why? Because these are the people who have seen the limitation of using the mind. Therefore, since whatever the mind can see is limited, limitlessness cannot be seen by the mind. Therefore, it is beyond the mind. Now, if it is beyond the mind, how do you know? Then the whole thing about anubhava, experiencing, etc. will come in. Are you getting what's happening? These are the two direct streams you find in the modern study of Vedanta. The so-called mystical approach where it is beyond, the academic approach which is within mind. Both happen because they are only focusing on one aspect, one type of statement, beyond the mind, and you have to know it by the mind. In traditional Vedanta, both the statements are given equal importance. Why? Why are both the statements given equal importance?
Both appear in
Huh?
both are in Upanishads.
Both are pramanas, exactly. Both are pramana vakya. You can't take one part of the pramana and leave another part of the pramana. It's not a buffet lunch. Pramana, the whole thing has to be accepted. And if you are accepting the whole thing, then both the statements. And in that both the statements are meaningful only when you look at it as akandakara vritti. Vritti vyapti is there, therefore manasa eva anudrashtavyam. Phala vyapti is not there, therefore yan manasana manute. There is no contradiction anywhere. It's harmonious. It only looks contradictory. So, therefore, the teacher has to have this methodology of putting the whole thing together. That's why Vedanta Sara is a beautiful thing because he has put the methodology down in writing. It's beautiful. Okay. All right. Pratibodhi Pratipadanat. Okay. All right. Now, he's being an independent writer, he is quoting a previous writer. Okay. Vidyarana Swami. Vidyarana Swami was a great writer, great teacher and writer. I think he belonged to Sringeri. He was the Acharya of Sringeri. Before that, he was a Prime Minister of the Vijayanagara Kingdom. Okay. He took sannyasa at the ripe old age of 90 and became the Pithadipati of Sringeri and was there for quite a few years. He has written a great book called Panchadashi. It's a Prasada Grantha. Okay, they say if you study Panchadashi, your knowledge will be crystal clear. Okay, but very, very elaborate. 15 chapters. Okay, it is twice the size of the Gita actually. Even though Gita is supposed to have 18 chapters and Panchadashi only 15. Okay, it's twice the size of the Gita. Now, Prasada Grantha. When I was doing the course in the ashram, I had to make a voyage in between. For about 6 months, 7 months, I was out of the ashram. So I asked Puja Swamiji, what will I do when I am sailing? Because those days, all this recording, this, that, etc. was not available. I am talking about the late 70s. This was in 76, 77. I had to make this voyage. He said, take the Panchadashi and study it. I said, yes. Out itself about 10 hours goes in work. Remaining time kya karne ka hai? No entertainment anyway those days. Nowadays all the Wi-Fi, this, that, etc. Your satellite, TV, etc. is available. Those days nothing is available. If you have some tapes or a CD recorder, you play it. That's all that's available. So, Panchadashi, so he is quoting that and he says, from the 6th chapter of the Panchadashi, he says, Taduktam Phalavyapyatvam Ayavasya Shastra Krud Bihi Nivaritam Brahma Ajnana Nashaya Vritti Vyaptihi Apekshita. He says, Taduktam, what is Uktam? Phalavyaptvam Evasya. The thing about Phalavyapti, Shastra Krudbi Nivaritam. Phalavyapti is negated by the people who are teaching the Shastra. But Brahma Ajnana Nashaya, to destroy the ignorance about Brahman, Vritti Vyapti Apekshita, we depend upon Vritti Vyapti. Therefore, both together, the knowledge becomes complete. Only then you can say, that is true. Remember, when this is happening in your mind, we are only explaining what's happening. You are not going to say, this is Vritti Vyapti, this is Phala Vyapti. Pen, do you see Vritti Vyapti and Phala Vyapti separately? No, no. It is one unit perception. Similarly, when you say, that is true. Even you don't, without a word, when the teacher is saying, that thought comes up in your mind, that feeling comes up. The whole process has happened. Ideally, this happens only in Shravanam. But as I said, as a tube light, it can happen in Nididhyasanam also, or Maranam also. Maranam also. Your mind can be arrested by something that you read and say, I told you all what people say, they have gone and experienced on the peaks of the Himalayas when they are meditating. I was going Bombay to Cochin, second class compartment of a train. I think the last trip I made with my family, my parents, etc. And I am going over something, so Swamiji's wrote this was before I joined the ashram. And I am looking at something and yeah, that's correct. And I am frozen there. After half an hour, my sister asked, are you asleep? She was a kid at that time. Are you asleep? Why? You have not turned one page of the last half an hour. I said, okay. No, I am not asleep. You must have been sleeping only. You know how kid sisters can be. Now, what am I going to say? How am I going to explain anything? So, it can click at any time, okay? Yeah, it can click at any time. Then what? Then this is what happens in your mind. Swayam Prakasha Manat. Yeah? Kamini, you have a question?
Yeah, I'm saying even when in Nididhyasana, when you do it yourself, when you recall the whole teaching, then also this
it can happen. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll explain all that in detail when we come to Nididhyasana. Here even Nididhyasana is presented. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Swayam prakashamanatvat na abhasam upayujyate iti cha panchadishis. Again, 6th chapter, 92nd verse, one verse down the line. Phala vyapti is not necessary because swayam prakasha rupatvat. It is self-evident because Atma is self-evident. Avabhasam na upasate, upayujyate. You don't have to illuminate, you don't have to maintain a subject-object relationship, all that not necessary. The relationship is already evident as I, Swayam Prakash. Remember, Phala Vyapti is necessary to make that connect between the object of knowledge and you, subject-object. Here that connect already exists as I, not subject-object. It exists as I, Swayam Prakasha. Swatasiddha Swayam Prakasha Rupatvat. Swatasiddham, self-established, not by a pramana. Swayam Prakasha, it's known by itself without the need for any pramana. I am is known. Therefore, na avabhasakam. It doesn't have to be illumined. All you need is something to negate that ignorance about yourself. इतना ही बात है, छोटी सी बात. छोटी सी बात, like छोटी सी आशा, छोटी सी बात. इतना ही बस हो गया. And that is gone, everything is gone. ఇది जड़ पदार्थ आकार कार्यत चित्तवृत्ते विशेषः अस्ति. But as far as inert objects are concerned, the vishesha, the division exists. There both vritti vyapti and phala vyapti is necessary because there is no connect between you and the vritti, between you and the pot. Between you and the pen, the connect happens only when there is an objectification. When there is no objectification, there is no connect. So the phala-vyapti, subject-object relationship, that one that creates it is necessary. That's the beauty of the whole thing. In one that is necessary, in the second that is not necessary. Okay. Clear up to now? Or any questions? Otherwise, next class I may ask some questions, okay?
So,
Yeah.
Swamiji, in this 177, it says there is no connect in the sense that you see it in the functional world because the underlying reality is the same, no?
Yeah.
So when you say that...
But there is a sense of...
that-
there is no connect because there is a sense of difference between you and the object. Na? Ajnana kritam, adhyasa kritam. Ajnana kritam, adhyasaha. Because of ajnana, there is an adhyasa. What is that? I am this much only and that is the world. Therefore, in your mind, there is no connect. And your mind is limited. Limited with your identification of the body, isn't it? I am this much only. So, where is the connect between you and the pot? The underlying connect of consciousness is there, but it is not there in your mind. Therefore, to bring that connect in your mind, you need that vritti. Otherwise, you are disconnected from everything. No? What are you connected with? Tell me. Thinking wise, feeling wise, you are not connected with anything. In fact, that is a problem. Disconnectedness and isolation is a human problem. And that disconnectedness to an extent vanishes when you go out with nature. That's why people love being with nature. And this is more true with those people who had uncommunicative parents or who are very different from their families. Then you will feel a great connect only when you are with nature. You feel you are alive. Otherwise, you don't feel you are alive. Of course, unless you are a modern nerd who will say, the great outdoors, etc., is overrated, okay? For hundreds of years, we have been creating indoors, not outdoors. You know, those who have been to that Yellowstone National Park in States, you must look at the visitors' books there and the comments on the visitors' books to give you a sample of some of them. It's a great place, but in some places climbing is difficult. You must put some elevators there. Why are you going to national park if you want elevators? It's a great place, but you should do something about the mosquitoes there. It's a great place, but the road is rough. What do you want, tarred roads in a park or what? The one thing that Shuddhananda and I never agreed to was, in construction of the Rishikesh ashram, was putting tiles all over the place. I said, make pathways and leave it. Other places leave. क्या बोलता रामू जी? सब सांप आ जाएगा. Snakes will come here. I said, yeah, snakes will come. It's their house anyway. We'll take care of it. How will you take care of it? Keep some anti-snake venom. Doctor within 2 minutes. Not a problem. Yeah. No. Put all that. That is city thinking coming into the nature. The land that we have identified, na, a lot of snakes there. Okay. I've seen quite a few snake skins. Already I can see people, you're going to make an ashram in such a place. Where do you want to make an ashram? Inside? I was offered. I'm not joking, I was offered. This guy said, why don't you buy this building in New Bombay? Okay. There are about, it's being under construction, so we can change the interiors as you want. It is only 5 floors. So if you want to make more rooms, etc., whole building you can make an ashram, no? Is that an ashram? That's an urban center for learning. That you can have. Yeah, if there is no other thing available, I would have taken that. But that's more costly than what this would be. As an urban center, it will be okay. And he used a funny expression. Swamiji, you will have a city ashram. And he came, I don't want to mention his ethnic background, but you can see, you can imagine how he pronounced the city ashram. It's a shitty ashram, you know. I said, I don't want it. So if there is no other choice, yes, because my concern is with the learning, not with nature. Nature, etc., helps the learning. So this is it. Okay? That even though there is a connectedness, back to the question, even though there is a oneness actually, not connectedness. There is a oneness, but there is a disconnect and a sense of isolation felt. Therefore, to an extent, you remove it by your understanding of Ishvara and Bhakti. Then you feel a little bit more connected to the whole thing. That's why Ishvara Jnanam again becomes important from the standpoint of getting the knowledge. Another reason for it. Because your sense of isolation and disconnectedness is managed very well once you understand Ishvara. Because everything is alive. What is really disconnected? Even though your mind doesn't know it, but still, everything is one. That feeling is there. I am part of the whole thing. Then the next step you take in terms of I am everything with the Akhandakara Vritti. So think it over. There are a couple of small nuances that there are 2-3 verses there which covers some of the small nuances, and I am sure there will be doubts if you all think about it well enough. Okay, which we will handle in the next class. Next Sunday, I am not sure of having the class. Okay, it will depend upon what my program is on Sunday morning. I am going to Ravana's country. Okay, I'm going to Ravana's country. So if the morning I will put it up in the group of yours, definitely. If the morning I am free, I don't have a program, Sunday being Sunday, so morning is free, and I can take a class. All I need is a couple of phones which I will take, and I will just think. I will make someone else a co-host, maybe Sundar or Sunita, who is there next Sunday as a co-host, so they can do the recording and we can put it up online. So then on my phone I can have the class. Okay. But subject to what the conditions are. I mean, it's not a holiday trip. It's partly a holiday because my cousin is there, but it's also work. I don't go just for a holiday. Unless there is work, I don't go. Rarely go only for a holiday. Okay. Unless the temple visit or something like that, that's a different thing. Okay. So, subject to that, we will have the class on Sunday or